You're listening to the Soulless Minions of Orthodoxy, alternative DVD commentaries. I'm your co-host Justin, and sitting next to me in the Soulless Minions virtual studios is Josh. Say hello, Josh.
Hello.
Hello. And tonight we're going to be doing 1984's The NeverEnding Story, directed by Wolfgang Peterson. Before we get going here, we certainly hope that you'll listen to our commentary with the movie playing. So if you're going to do that, you're going to want to put your movie on pause about the first black frame after the Warner Brothers logo fades to black. So go ahead and get your DVD queued up for that. We're paused. You're paused. And what I'm going to do is give you a 3-second countdown. It's going to go like this. 3, 2, 1, unpause. We'll all unpause together, and we'll watch the movie. So everyone grab your remotes. This is for real. 3, 2, 1, unpause.
All right, so Warner Brothers and Producers Sales Organization present. That's a
weird
title.
Name.
That was weird. All right, that caught me off guard.
Wolfgang Peterson film.
All right, well, we should be in sync for those using either the DVD or Blu-ray.
Yes.
The NeverEnding Story.
Playing, of course, we can't hear it because we turn our sound down, is the incredible opening song. Very famous, well-known opening song.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember the artist, the name, offhand?
Oh, gosh, no, I don't.
It's an odd name. It's like, it starts with an L, I think.
Well, let me see. I've got my IMDb page pulled up. Let's see. You go ahead and keep talking while I look that up.
Well, while I was looking up some information about this the other day, I found...
Oh, I'm sorry, I got it.
Okay.
It's Limahl.
That sounds about right.
Limahl.
All right. Well, I think was a part of Kaja Gugu.
I wouldn't know about that.
What I read yesterday, yeah, that's true. I think this is the spilt milk effect, but pretty standard opening, I guess.
Oh, the special effects, you mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it looks like it.
Yeah, and you will notice, look, screenplay by Wolfgang Peterson. I missed the other gentleman's name. You notice that there's no credit given to the author of the book.
No, I did not notice.
Yeah, it's Michael Ende, if I'm pronouncing that right. He's German.
Why would they not give him...
Well, because Mr. Ende does not like this movie at all.
Oh, you know what? I think I've heard that.
Yeah, he hates this movie with a passion. Like he has a grudge against it. It's, I mean, I can only imagine how he feels about Wolfgang Peterson, but he really hates this movie, and
he has to be removed.
He even tried to sue.
Wow.
Yeah, he was really unhappy, and I can't say.
Have you read the book?
No.
Okay, I'm not going to pretend to have read it either, but I do remember, you probably know this, but I do remember reading or hearing something that this movie ends halfway through the book.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
I didn't read the book, but I did look up information about the book to see what the differences were and to see why Ende was so upset with this adaptation. And reading about it and investigating it, I really don't understand why he's so upset. This seems like a pretty faithful adaptation, considering it's only half of the book. And I come to think that maybe if he wasn't such a jerk about this, then maybe Wolfgang Peterson would have stuck around for the sequel. We all know how the sequel turned out.
Yeah.
There was a little brief moment there with this actor from Simon and Simon. I can't remember his
Gerald
name.
McRaney.
With Gerald McRaney, Major Dad.
Yeah.
When he opens the jar of jelly. It's very subtle, but I liked it. It was kind of a way of demonstrating how weak Bastion is.
Mm-hmm.
Just in a very eye-catching way, unless you're really paying attention. And he's depressed over the loss of his mother, and well, the father is supposed to be his wife, but apparently in the novel, the father is the one who's in deep despair over the loss of his mother and his wife. So that was changed, and this is the only scene we really get with the father. But here he's just trying to give his son a little bit of advice on how to move on, get your head out of the clouds, keep your feet on the ground, so to speak.
Right.
And that's just pretty much all we get. So I can see, that's a little off-putting, I guess. Andy could be a little upset about that, but for the most part, there doesn't seem to be... It's a movie. It's a movie. It's not a book. You can't expect everything from the book to be in the movie. You can't do it. It's a totally different medium. We'll talk about some of those things.
Mm-hmm.
But from what I can tell, it seems to be a fair adaptation. But the sequel, from what I read, if you recall the sequel at all, with Jonathan Brandis, do you remember?
For the most part.
Yeah, the NeverEnding Story, the next chapter, and I can't remember which year that came out, but I recall part of the plot being that he goes to Fantasia, meets up with Atreyu again. He goes to, well, not the Ivory Tower, whatever city they call it, but
yes.
Mm-hmm.
It's Fantasia.
Is it just? Well, there's a city he goes to. I think it's like Silver City or something like that.
Oh, okay.
And he meets up with the Empress again, and then he apparently he's given wishes, and as he wishes, he loses memories.
Right.
Do you remember that part? Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's that evil witch who is trying to...
I wish for you to have a heart.
That's right. I don't know if that happens in the book, but that's in the movie.
I sure hope not.
But yeah, that's pretty much the second half of the NeverEnding Story, of Bastian going into Fantasia and wishing Fantasia back into existence. And slowly, he begins to lose his memories and forget himself. And then it's up to Atreyu and Falcor to get him to come back. So that's pretty much the second half, and they adapted that into the second movie.
That really does sound like a completely different, story. It's hard to imagine that being part of the same book.
That's what happened apparently. So, and I can understand why. Fantasia being restored seems like a natural end. So that being in the middle confuses us who are only familiar with this movie.
Well, yes. Do you know if this movie was financially successful?
Well, I read on the IMDb that it grossed $100 million. I don't know if that's just domestic or worldwide. So I would say it was.
It did well. So then I would imagine that the producers of this movie had thought, well, we'll just do the other half as part 2. I wonder why they never quite got there in such a time to where they could even use these same actors.
Well, I think just because is what I said, that Wolfgang Peterson and the author had a falling out.
Yeah, but...
And probably Wolfgang Peterson's entourage had a falling out with, I don't want to be involved with this project anymore.
Well, I get that, but here they have a hit, and they don't need Wolfgang Peterson. They could have used all the actors and all that, and the studio would have had to have bought the rights to the book. So, granted, there's obviously had to have been a lot more politics to it than that, but it just seems like kind of a no-brainer to go ahead and do the other half. They ultimately did it anyway, so...
Why they... Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's just because of the legality involved after... With
yeah.
That,
I guess it's possible that they would have had to have cut a different deal with, the writer for the other half of the,
Well, I think they were caught up in maybe a lawsuit of some kind when he tried to sue them, and then when he lost the lawsuit, they were like, okay, now we can make the second half of the book because we did buy the rights to the book. We can do whatever we want with it. So maybe
that's a good point.
Maybe that's why it just took so long. But
maybe
this guy. I don't think we ever learn his name in the movie, but his name is Carl Conrad Coriander.
That's quite a name.
And Bastian...
Thomas Hill is his name.
That's the actor's name?
Yes.
Bastian is Bastian Balthazar Bucks. So he's BBB, and he is CCC. That's one of the things that's supposed to bring some commonality between the two. Because... this character, of course, plays a bigger role in the book as well. They actually discuss, after Bastian goes into Fantasia, he and the bookstore owner here discuss both of their adventures in Fantasia. And they bond a little bit.
It's only a story.
But actually, it's Fantastica, not Fantasia. That was because the book is German,
Right.
and the English translation is Fantastica, but Fantasia, Fantastica. I mean, which one sounds better? I don't know. I mean, I'm used to Fantasia, so
Fantasia just sounds so much more fanciful. Fantastica.
Fantastica.
That's kind of cool. It's got an interesting thing too, but it's I don't know. It sounds cheaper to me.
It is, but it's hard to for us to be objective because we're just used to it being one way.
Well, sure.
There's the Orin. The Orin.
Orin.
And, well, not that Orin, but the one that Atreyu wears is apparently in a glass case in Steven Spielberg's home.
Awesome.
From what I read on the trivia pages. I'm like, yeah, that sounds believable. If I had it, I'd probably put it in a glass case, too.
Oh, hell yeah.
And that's Barrett Oliver. That's his name, right?
Yes.
The only thing I know him from is Daryl and Cocoon.
Yeah.
1 and 2.
Mm-hmm.
That's about it.
Yeah. Let me pull him up real quick. I know he pretty much stopped after that, but I can give you some specifics on it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see.
I know they filmed the movie in Germany. Did you know that? So this is in Germany. Only the opening with his father was in Vancouver.
I wonder why they even did that.
Well, I'm guessing. Well, why they did that, I don't know, but that makes sense as to why Gerald McCraney was in it, because I'm sure they shot a lot of stuff up in Canada. That makes sense.
Cocoon: The Return was the second to last thing he did, and that was in 1988. He did something in 1999 called, or 1989, called "Scenes from the Class Struggle in Beverly Hills." But I do remember he was about a teenager or so in Cocoon: The Return. I don't know why he stopped.
I'm not sure. You never know
like
child actors. I like him too. He has a very camera friendly look. He makes for a good protagonist in most of his stories. I mean, Daryl, of course. This and Daryl, I think he's mostly known for. So, yeah, and I also saw that during the scene with the father brings up something about the swim team, and that's something that comes about in the sequel. If you remember, Jonathan Brandis was trying to jump off the high dive, and there was waterfall. Right.
Yeah.
So you have to have a real quick ear to hear it. But he says something about, "Oh, you didn't try out for the swim team." I'm like, oh, hey, I remember that. Jonathan Brandis was on the swim team, so I guess he does try out. And you remember his father in the sequel was the Flash from the TV series The Flash.
Yes.
I don't remember that actor's name, but...
Oh. I'm drawing a blank on it right now.
That's okay. He gets around. Now we're in Fantasia, whichever you want to call it. I'm not sure. Reading about all the disputes about the book compared to the movie, how unhappy the author was about it. It's made me really curious to read it. I've listened to some of the audiobook, and to be honest, fantasy is just not my genre. I can watch a fantasy film like this one. Obviously, I like it a lot, but fantasy books just aren't my forte, because it's all about the setting, creating new worlds, and it's very descriptive in its worlds, like Gulliver's Travels or The Odyssey, and it's all about these fantastical worlds and imagining new places, and that's just never. It's less on character, more on the setting, and that's something that's always left me a little cold. The rock biter.
I'm quite a fan of fantasy. I granted do not read a lot of printed fantasy work. I'm a much bigger fan of film, fantasy on film. But
Legend being one of them.
Legend is a top 10 favorite of mine. But fantasy as a whole, I thoroughly enjoy. And this is, what I'm about to say is based entirely on film, not, written works. But I think it's very hard to find really good fantasy stories and in this case movies. They something about them seems a little difficult to get right.
It's very difficult to translate into
not even if they're just translating something that that was a novel or something like that. It just seems like fantasy it either hits or it doesn't. There doesn't seem to be a lot of middle ground when it comes to fantasy movies. I don't know why. There seems to be some sort of X factor that if they don't have it just comes off as stupid. And this movie has so much going for it. It's such an awesome movie.
Well, can you give me for instance where it did not work?
What, in this?
No, not in this, but another film.
Well, shoot, look at the sequel. I think that's a really good example. Especially since we're
very true. And
and remember, that's a continuation of the same friggin' story, and it was awful.
And don't forget, there was a third one too.
Oh, I know.
Which has nothing to do with. They went off on a tangent on that one.
Right.
From what I read,
but I mean that's a really good example, and it's not just because some of the acting was bad and all of that, although that was certainly a factor. But it was, in that case, they were obviously translating, from book to screen, and they missed it. Or at least I felt they missed it. Maybe someone else would watch it and would prefer that because they're obviously very tonally different.
Mm-hmm. Oh, very.
And, if you drop...
Well, the second one looks just cheap, even though it seemed to cost... I'm sure it
that's
cost
a really
money.
good example. Yeah. They probably spent more money to make it, and it looks awful. Mm-hmm. That's a good example of them trying almost too hard to create this world that does not exist. And it ends up coming off, frankly, retarded. This one takes place mostly in, forests and swamps and all of that, yet it conveys so much more majesty and mystery. Mm-hmm. It's just tricky. It's almost with fantasy. It's almost like, at least on film, you're better off suggesting rather than showing. As good as Legend is, and I love Legend, you don't really see that much. A lot of it is implied or referred. You see a couple different creatures, but really it's in a forest. It's like that the world, the kingdoms of kings and all that is out there, but you don't see any of it. They just talk about it,
That's a good point.
At least that's just an observation based on at least these two in particular.
Well, I can't claim to know much about Legend, but you're definitely right in comparing this to the sequel to this. Mm-hmm. Do you know who directed the sequel, by any chance?
Well,
if you can check that out.
Yeah.
These characters here, I actually wrote down their names because they're not referred to by name.
Yeah, they are. Oh, one of them is Nighthawk.
His name isn't Nighthawk. He is a Nighthawk. That's his species.
Oh, I see.
His real name is Woosh Woozle. Okay. And I'm not kidding.
Say that again.
Woosh Woozle. Joe Swizwicki. Yeah, it's Woosh Woozle. That's his name.
All right.
He is he's a Nighthawk, and the tiny man, well, he's actually supposed to be tiny, and so is the racing snail, but here he's regular size. His name is Gluckuk, and the rock biter, who is actually the rock chewer, this is really difficult to pronounce. I don't think I can. Bjorn Nockzark. There is a lot of odd names and odd names for settings in the novel. A lot. Some hard to pronounce.
George Miller directed the sequel. I'm not familiar with him.
I'm not either. Yeah, the nothing is also very present. It is called a nothing, but it's not. It's more of an abstract kind of presence because it's nothing. Something, even a hole. As he said, a hole, that would be something. This was nothing.
It was nothing.
It's more of an abstract thing. Here it's represented by something, which is like a storm. Mm-hmm. Which I think kind of makes a little. Well, it makes sense in the movie because as we see, Bastian is incorporating things from his world into this, and there's a storm outside the attic that he's in, raging. And I thought, well, it makes sense. Nothing would be in his mind would be a storm because there's a storm.
Oh, that's a good idea. I hadn't thought about that.
Oh, really?
No.
I thought it was quite
obvious.
Yeah, I guess you hadn't thought about it.
No, Jesus, I never did.
Well, there's other elements too. I mean, as you recall, Gamork, the wolf, he runs into a wolf head in the attic.
Well, yes, he does. Yeah, I just didn't. I wasn't paying attention to that scene when it just played now. But yeah, I mean, you're right about that.
This piece of music here is glorious. Incredible. It's beautiful. I was completely taken by it when I was rewatching this the other day, and I was like, "Wow, I forgot this movie really has some great cues."
It does. The soundtrack is a little. I'm not 100% on the story. Giorgio Moroder did it, but then there's two versions. It's not as drastic as the score to Legend, which has two different scores by two totally different people. Giorgio Moroder, there's a version, I guess, just with him, and then another version where it's I think he was even involved with it, but where they
sped it up.
Maybe they sped it up or something.
Right.
I mean, they're virtually the same, but there are subtle differences. And
I went looking for this version. I couldn't find it. I had the other one.
I have both. Yeah.
Okay. I wanted this version because it's captivating.
It is. It's gorgeous.
This is the Ivory Tower, the home of the Empress.
Yeah.
This is and this is one of the things that I found on YouTube. Actually, there's actually some stuff on YouTube about this movie that I hadn't seen before, because this movie, in both of its releases on DVD and on Blu-ray, are completely bare bones. No special features, nothing. But they do have on YouTube a 4 or 5 part behind the scenes featurette. All in combination, about 30 minutes. But it's in German, so it's subtitled. But they talk to they talk to Wolfgang Peterson. They talk to the author, and they show how they shot certain scenes. Atreyu riding on Falkor, the Swamps of Sadness. It was fascinating to see this because I'd never seen anything like it before. Yeah. Nothing on this movie I'd ever been able to find, and then this was like a little behind the scenes featurette. It was fascinating, even though it was back in 1984 and it wasn't completely explicit. It was still very, very interesting. And
but you couldn't understand it, right?
It's subtitled. It's in English, so you can read what the narrator's saying. But I thought this scene, I found this to be great. Seeing all these practical puppets and things are really there.
Oh, yeah.
It was, these creatures with multi-faces, and I was like, wow, this is really neat. I like this a lot. In a modern movie, this would all be CG characters most likely.
Oh, yeah. This is... I'm going to look at those guys with the giant heads. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was amazing. I was like, wow. And Michael Ende, this is one of the things he bashed.
This scene?
He hated it. I mean, he hated the whole movie, but this scene, he's like, oh, the Ivory Tower. It's completely ridiculous. There should be a disco ball hanging from it. This is what he said. So
I would really love to read his descriptions and see what, his intention was. Because this, obviously, without reading the book, this seems fantastic.
To us it does, sure. I mean, we're not familiar with what he wrote, but... Well, here's another moment. This is Atreyu, basically. Incorporating something he sees into the book.
Well, yeah, now that makes sense. I mean, obviously he's reading the character on the page, but he's going to put his own visual spin on it.
Mm-hmm. It's all a matter of translation. I mean, some things you read in a book just don't translate well visually. They look goofy. It's true. Some things you just have to change.
Mm-hmm. Well, without seeing what he put, who knows? Although, for all we know, the visual depiction of Fantasia in Part 2 is more accurate. Who knows?
I don't know. I'd be curious to what he had said about the sequels. I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry.
This actor looks familiar, and I don't know who he is, but he looks familiar.
Who? The guy talking?
Mm-hmm.
His name is Moses Gunn.
Wow, what a great name.
Let me pull him up real quick and tell you some of the things he's been in.
Okay.
Yeah, he's kind of a character actor. Let's see.
Well, one of the things I found interesting, too, was that...
He died on my birthday.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah. Not the same year I was born, but he was in Heartbreak Ridge.
Right. Webster.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You actually remember his name?
It was on the other day.
Well, I think for you and I, that's probably the most obvious thing.
Okay, well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Atreyu is actually supposed to be green.
I remember something about that, yeah.
And attempts were made to paint... Is it Noah Hathaway? Is that the actor's name?
Yes.
To paint Noah Hathaway green. But it was... it looked ridiculous. It just didn't look right.
Thank God.
And see, there you go. That's one of those instances where it doesn't look right. It just doesn't translate. I mean, maybe you can imagine a green-skinned young warrior in your mind, and that's fine. But on screen,
well, yeah. I mean,
look a little odd.
As realistic as the characters in Avatar look, of course they're all CG. Had you painted real actors, and done that makeup, it might not have played as well because they could do it CG. They could accentuate certain things and make them look a little less human, therefore a little more believable as these alien creatures. However, slapping green paint on Noah Hathaway, yeah, it's probably gonna read silly.
Yeah, I would imagine so. I'm glad they didn't go with that.
I just don't think makeup wise, especially now maybe I'm wrong in the book. I don't know if he's physically built just like a human anyway, but if he's supposed to be, the same general look as a human, just green.
Mm-hmm. That's from what I could, find out. That's
then I don't see a way they could have applied such makeup that wouldn't have looked silly and taken you out of it. And besides which, he's our protagonist. We kind of need to relate to him. And if he's green,
Yeah, that's true. Well, as we know, Atreyu is the embodiment in the story of Bastion.
Right.
This is what Bastion wants to be. And Bastion is actually supposed to be fat.
Oh, really?
Fat and shy, recluse. Recluse because of his mother, but even more so because he likes to read books. I mean, it's vice versa. I mean, he was probably already into the fantasy world, but he's gone even deeper because of the death of his mother.
Right.
I can't imagine this was in Germany. Do they have areas like this?
I don't know. It doesn't look like Germany to me. But
it looks like Southern California.
It does. I don't know what that is.
Well, yeah, this is on the planet in Galaxy Quest where they go to pick up the Brillium Spheres.
Rock.
Garignac.
Yeah, I don't think that is Garignac.
This is Gamork.
Yeah.
See, they all have strange names. It's Gamork.
German.
Gmork, and there's other characters with really strange names and places with hard to pronounce names.
Yeah.
Which kind of bothers me a little bit. Ooh, that's nice.
Yeah, I like that little flat. That's good editing, man. We just get a little tease of them.
It bothers me a little bit while reading when they make people's names or places hard to pronounce, because it always pauses me during the story. I'm like, God, how do I say this again? And just make it a little easier to make out. This setting here, this looks like Legend. Don't you think?
I was just thinking that.
Yeah, it looks so much like Legend.
Well, Legend was also shot on a stage as opposed to going out to a real forest. Yeah, so it does. It's lit differently, but it does have a very similar feel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Atreyu is actually from the grassy plains, and he does hunt purple buffalo, apparently.
Right.
And the entire village raised him, apparently. His name means son of all.
Oh, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Good idea. No, it's a great...
Do you think he overacts a little bit? I don't think so. I like him in this movie.
Oh, I like him fine. I mean, he's playing for the audience, so it's obviously more over the top than it would be if he were, really alone and not with an audience.
I like this. He's hungry, so he imagines Atreyu being hungry and eating. I kind of like that.
Okay, wait a second. Why do you say that? He's hungry, so you think he's imagining Atreyu being hungry? He's reading the story.
Well, he's feeling hunger, so I think subconsciously he's imagining that Atreyu wants to eat because he wants to eat too.
I don't know about that.
Okay.
You think because Bastian's reading the book and he himself is hungry, he therefore is making Atreyu hungry?
Well, he is Atreyu initially. I mean, essentially, I mean, this is his story. He's making it up as he goes along. You don't have to agree with me. If you don't, you don't.
I think that's true, but I don't think it's true quite to the extent that you seem to be implying. Anyway, I don't think he's truly making up the story as it goes. I think that they phrase it in such a way in the movie. I'd have to be paying attention when the subtitles come up. Mm-hmm. But I want to say the Empress says it to him, like you're a part of it. You're something. I forget her words, but I think you could argue maybe that the skeleton of the story is there in the book, but the reader somehow imposes his own touches to it. But
I understand what you mean, and that's the way I always kind of interpreted it growing up, was that the skeleton of the story was there, and then you threw in your own elements. And Fantasia was always there, but from what I've uncovered, that's not necessarily the case. That Fantasia is different for everyone. And it's populated by your imaginations, your imaginings. And Fantasia is kind of like, in essence, the universe. Think of the universe beginning with the Big Bang. And that's the beginning, before there was nothing. But say the universe, instead of spreading apart as it is now, collapses in on itself. And then once that's complete, there's another Big Bang, and it spreads out and is reborn. So imagine Fantasia like that. Fantasia goes through cycles, like the universe goes through cycles. It constantly goes through death and rebirth. Mm-hmm. As it does in this movie only once. I mean, it does. Fantasia is destroyed and is reborn because of Bastian. And that's because he gives the Empress a new name. But, okay, wait. Let's talk about this scene. It's just the most heart-wrenching scene. And
this is awesome.
This is awesome. Don't you think this is one of the saddest moments in movie history? I think a lot of people would agree, at least our age anyway.
When I was younger, I was probably, let's see, how old would you say this actor is now, Hathaway here? He looks to be maybe 12,
13, 14.
Yeah. I'm a couple of years on IMDb. I want to say he's about 5 years older than me. So, I was probably around 7 or so when this came out. Probably 8 when it hit video, maybe 9. And at that age, what's going on here was it wasn't over my head, but I didn't appreciate it. As I grew up and would revisit this movie, this scene became one of the the high points of the movie. Mm-hmm. Especially when he, at this point here, when he's just, he's being destroyed by this, and you feel for Artex. What I love about that is you have to think about it. You have to think about what's going on. It's like, what on earth is going on in this horse's mind? He's succumbing to it, but it's. I'm just saying, it's so much deeper than what it at first appears. There's a lot going on just in the scene, and then the music just drives it home, and
it's heart-wrenching.
I can't say enough about it.
It hurts, and it makes me wonder. One thing is, why isn't Atreyu taken down into the swamps as well?
At this point,
especially at this point.
Well, when he starts walking, he
Well,
damn near does get
that's
taken
true.
later on.
That's a good point. That's true. And one of the things you may find interesting is Artax actually speaks. Artax is supposed to be a talking horse. So perhaps we would know what Artax was thinking in that case.
I would rather not know.
Well, for us, it's better to wonder and just know. We don't need to know exactly what is going on, but just to know that the power of sadness has overwhelmed the horse.
Right.
And that's all we need to know. I mean, sentient or not, sadness can overcome a creature. So
I would think it probably takes, most simple-minded creatures that come in there. Atreyu's barely able to survive it, at least as far as he does, because, he's got a certain will that just comes along with a, more self-aware creature. He's driven.
This is Morla, the aged
ancient one.
Well, the aged one,
Right.
as referred to in the novel. Yeah, it's not really known whether it's the swamps of sadness are the results of Morla being so melancholy, or vice versa, or if they perpetuate each other.
Yeah, probably
sure.
both.
Mm-hmm.
Hadn't thought about that.
Well, apparently Morla, along with the childlike empress and another character which doesn't appear in the movie, the old man of Wandering Mountain, are supposed to be the oldest living creatures in Fantasia. That's what it says. So, the old man of Wandering Mountain. Yeah, he's apparently he doesn't appear in the sequel either, but he does appear in part 3. But of little resemblance, I guess, to the actual source material.
Right.
I'm not sure, but he is one of the reasons that draws Bastian into Fantasia. He's able to draw him in. He and the childlike empress are able to do so through the old man of the Wandering Mountain.
Mm-hmm.
So he's an important character, but this Morla character still looks pretty good.
Yeah, I was just thinking that you just can't be practical,
You can't, and I've heard some reviews, retrospectives on this movie lately, and people are not kind to the effects. They mention they're quaint and maybe decent for the time, but they're so obvious. I'm thinking, how so? They still look good for the most part. I mean, some of the composites are a little weak, but stuff like this you can tell is real stuff, and it looks good. I mean, you can assume that more or less probably miniature, wouldn't you say?
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, it's gosh, I'm trying to. There's a close up. Really, there's no way to know how big that thing is. I mean, it's probably decent size because there would be no reason not to make it a good enough size to get all the animatronics in there. I mean, it was going to be composited into the shots with Atreyu anyway, so they probably built it a pretty good scale, though. I would say, that face is probably as big as a human face, at least, if not bigger.
Did you know that the Empress
At least, yeah, you would think. And I remember reading that the actor almost drowned during this scene, or maybe he was in the swamps of sadness.
What? Really?
Yeah, pulled under, and by the time they brought him to the surface, he was unconscious. Thought that was interesting.
Huh.
Yeah, a couple of times. There's another instance, I can't remember the other one, but I always kind of enjoyed this bit. He's allergic to
you have a cold?
kids, was it
To
just
humans?
It's a youth. I think he's allergic to youth.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they said
To youth. Yeah, I was kind of like that. That was interesting. And it's kind of gross too. But I mean, he's getting sneezed on. It's kind of disgusting, but I think it's a nice bit of fantasy.
You don't tell me, and then nothing
Yeah.
is coming. You'll die too.
I don't know if that's actually in the novel as well, or if that's just an invention of the movie. I'm not sure.
least would be some.
Yeah, it's a shame one of us didn't read it.
I tried, as I said, I tried listening to the audiobook. I couldn't get into it. It's just not my genre.
Please help
I'll
me.
have to try it.
You said you knew the answer.
Well, I've got a copy of it if you like.
Yeah, I'd like to.
Okay.
Nothing matters.
Yeah, I think this is where we're getting the information about
If it didn't really matter to you, you
having
could tell me.
to reach the boundaries of Fantasia.
Clever boy.
No, not the boundaries. Excuse me. The Southern Oracle. The boundaries of Fantasia comes later. The Southern Oracle, which there's a lot of differences there too.
How can I
But
You can't. It's
10,000 miles away. That's right. But how they get there, how Atreyu gets there, is a little different actually.
How so?
Well, in the movie here, Atreyu is taken by Falkor to
Right.
the Southern Oracle, but apparently Atreyu is supposed to rescue Falkor, I believe. And after that, they don't fly to the Southern Oracle. Apparently, Atreyu takes a potion from some sort of I can't remember the name of the creature. It's not a potion. Sorry, he's bitten, but the poison allows whoever's bitten to be magically transported to the Southern Oracle. But the unfortunate side effect is that that person might die. So I think it's because they're saved by the gnomes, and as you see, the gnomes are giving them injections, if you recall.
Mm-hmm.
That is supposed to be why they live, because they're given this antidote. So, but apparently they filmed that scene, or it was scripted, but it
Yeah.
never came to pass. I guess for budget reasons. Apparently, somewhere in this scene, or somewhere a little bit later, there's a cutscene that you can find on the internet where a janitor comes in and interrupts him, and he runs away.
Really?
Yeah, like I said, it would like those behind the scenes featurettes. It was
No,
really fascinating to see, just to see anything.
Atreyu wouldn't quit now.
You know, something I hadn't seen before. I was like, oh, I mean, the scene wasn't much. He just gets up and runs away. So here's Gamork.
Yeah.
Yeah, Gamork is actually. They explain a bit more about him, why he's on his mission. Apparently, he is working for someone or a group known as the Manipulators. Manipulators, I guess, want to take control of Fantasia or Fantastica, whichever you want to call it. Oh, that creature's name, by the way, is Gramule. That's the creature that lets them get to the Southern Oracle.
Oh, okay.
But, Gamork works for the Manipulators and apparently can exist in both worlds, if I read that right, the real world and the fantasy world, and that's why the Manipulators contacted him. Because apparently the Nothing doesn't work quite the same way as it does here. This is a great scene, by the way. I hate just to talk over it, but the music and the acting here,
The editing was.
the editing,
Yeah, it all just came together.
Oh, it's beautiful. I mean, Gamork he's not the best looking animatronic puppet, but he's fucking scary.
And he's huge. You can't really tell. I mean, you see up briefly in that shot, but it's not really until the end when he squares off against Atreyu that you see how big he is.
Yeah, and you're like, holy shit. Yeah. He's scary. I mean, he scared me. But that scene is pretty damn awesome. I think it's just the editing and the music.
After days
And,
and nights of unconsciousness,
It was fascinating to see Wolfgang Peterson on set as he watched, not that scene, but I think the other scene when Artex was dying, and he's watching Noah Hathaway act, and you see Wolfgang Peterson looking at his little monitor, and he looks so emotionally enveloped in the scene. It was just fun to watch him react to it. And yeah, I'm like, wow, now that's a director who takes his work seriously. He was so into it, trying to get it just right. It's fascinating. Falcor.
Yeah, what did he say about Falcor? Again, a physical effect, real. Yes. I mean, it does not take a genius to figure out that, it's just two, big things slapping together to make them talk. But I don't care. I would take this any day over a CG effect.
Definitely. Any
day. Yes, his movements are boxy compared to what, a real creature like that would be doing. But I don't care. Those are real eyes those are physical eyes moving, I mean, look at that.
Yeah, Noah Hathaway was actually there with this.
Laying on him.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, this.
Look at that. He's smiling. This shit, the little fucker has an expression and everything.
And this was back in 1984. Before, I mean, was this Jim Henson's work? Their studio?
It had to have been. I mean, who else would they go to? You
would think. I mean, this was before some of their other work. Like they did the Turtles movie, the first one anyway, right?
The Henson shop? I think so.
And look how great their facial movements were. I mean, his mouth is a little stiff.
Yeah,
but he looks pretty damn good.
He does.
And gives a wink. It's real.
Look at that. That's pretty good movement. The rest of him is obviously very static and all of that. I mean, if they had tons of money to throw at it, they could have made the whole damn body move. But they only had so much money, so they just focused on the head and the leg there, obviously. But look at him. He's breathing back there. Look at his back.
Yeah, it's going up and down. I mean, these are nuances they really, really had to do. They just couldn't go into a computer and do it. They had to create. I mean, they may have guides inside him pushing up and down.
Oh, they probably do.
For all we know. That's probably what it is. I mean, who knows how many operators this creature has.
Quite a few. Look how many were in Jabba the Hutt, for crying out loud.
I still remember that behind-the-scenes feature where they had the little person in there rowing his tail.
Yep. They had one guy at the tail, two in the head, and one in the body doing breathing. And then I think that same guy did the smoking effect.
Yeah.
With luck.
Yeah, I remember that too. Backwards and forwards.
Very good. Yeah, he's already at the Southern Oracle. Yeah. So they did intend to put that in the movie. So, I mean, it's not as if Wolfgang Peterson was trying to create something that wasn't like the book. He was doing the best he could with what he had. I was just really shocked that the author was so against this movie. I mean, to the point to have your name removed from the credits. I mean, at least know that it was adapted from your book, because you know what that will do? It will have people go and read your book. They'll be interested about it. So why take your name off of it? I mean, that's just, I think that's just bad form.
Yeah,
to me it is. I mean, maybe, I know writers, they're very, you get close to your work, and I can imagine you don't want it messed with, but still. I know the only other reference I can think of is Stephen King and The Shining.
Mm-hmm.
Him being unhappy with The Shining, but he didn't take his name off of it. He didn't go that far.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know how I would react if it was something I did. If I felt that it was so grossly unlike my work.
But what do you expect? You sell the rights of your novel to a film studio. What do you expect? That means you are not in control anymore. You have given away your work. And it's the same, it's not written in stone, but when you write a book and you put it out to the public, I don't think it belongs to you anymore. It becomes the world's.
Yeah, well.
No. I mean, not necessarily. I mean, once you put it out there, it becomes the property of everyone. It doesn't necessarily belong to you anymore. It exists in the imagination of everyone who reads it. So I don't think you're necessarily the sole owner of it anymore. I mean, yeah, it was your creation, but once you put it out there, it's out there.
Yeah, I think that's a way to put it. Once you put it out, once it's out there, it's out there. It's you still own it. It's still yours, but you had better expect other people to put their own interpretation on it, because it's ultimately an art form. And if you've written something, every single person that reads it is going to see it slightly differently. And if you're then giving those same people permission to put it on screen, they're going to translate it in a way that how they felt it looked, or how they feel other people would want to see it look. You know, I mean, George Lucas is of course, a good example. Does he own those movies, or should he leave them out there for us?
I think that's a go-to example.
Well, it is, but you know,
I am somewhat of an expert.
This actress is from Willow. Correct?
holy crap!
Yeah, that's the.
That's Finn Rizal.
That's Finn Rizal.
Oh my God,
you
you're
didn't
right.
know that? I was just saying it, and then you were going to say yes, that's right, but you didn't know. That's surprising. When I was watching this last night, I was like, she looks familiar. Wait a second, is that Rizal? It is Rizal. Yeah, isn't that amazing?
I mean, I can literally hear her voice in my head.
Oh yeah, that's her. Look at her face. That's Rizal.
Yeah, well, yeah.
I think that's great that she's in two very notable 80s fantasy films. I think that's great. I mean, albeit this is a very small part, but I like that line. To the winch, wench.
Yeah.
That's a good line. I like this prop here. But
what do they call this? It's not split screen. It's something else. Forced perspective.
Oh, forced perspective. Yeah.
Yeah, they did a really fucking good job on.
Well, you're going to see a major forced perspective shot when they're up on the top of that.
Well, that's what I'm talking about when they get to the top. You know that I'll be damned if I can figure out how the hell they did that shit.
I don't know.
Because they really did a good job.
Trick of the trade, it's something they only know how to do correctly, But these two characters are Engiwook and Urgle. I told you, everyone has a weird name. It's like, seriously, can you make their names a little harder to pronounce, please? It's like, I don't want to have to pause every time these characters are going to be mentioned.
No, I get that.
Yeah. And this is another one of those things Ende was really unhappy with, was the portrayal of the Southern Oracle. He mentioned their ginormous breasts.
What about them?
Of the sphinxes. He was like, oh, they're sphinxes, but bosomy is all hell. It's like, that's not how I wrote it. Like, yeah, whatever. It's like, fine. It's like he wanted the movie to be a literal adaptation of his book. I'm like,
well, they probably all do. Everyone has written
just,
something.
oh my God. It's just, let it go. Let it go, man. If you didn't want that to happen, then you shouldn't have signed away the rights to your book.
Stay closed until someone who does
This is pretty close. It's your worth, like kind of like Indiana Jones. The penitent man will pass. Penitent. This is someone with courage. Be confident.
Yeah. I love this guy.
The actor.
He's such a character. I mean,
yeah.
just look at that. Damn, they did a good job.
He reminds me of someone who should have been in Baron Munchausen.
Yeah, that would fit.
Well, this whole movie kind of has a Baron Munchausen feel to it.
Baron Munchausen is weird, man.
Well, that's
Terry Gilliam.
Terry Gilliam, and he is weird.
I think he's gonna make it.
I like the setup of his telescope.
Shut. Let me see.
Let me see. Yeah, she talks well. That's the snaggle tooth. Is one of those things that sells it too. Yeah, it's not confidence, but the lack of fear. No, that's the same thing.
I would more describe it as a almost like faith. It's it's not just confidence. You can have someone who's extremely confident and egocentric, but they have no faith, no belief. Mm-hmm. They believe in their sword, but they don't really believe in themselves. Mm-hmm. Atreyu has to believe in truly believe in himself and his intentions. He has to be pure.
Yeah. In essence, that's the way it was supposed to be. Initially, it was letting go of admitting your fear and then letting go of it, realizing
and still walking through it
and being able to walk through.
Yeah, it's like Indiana Jones and Last Crusade. When he has to take that step
on the
It's a leap
on the
of
invisible
faith.
on the invisible bridge that is really there.
Yeah.
See, this is kind of it's an obvious composite shot, but it
Yeah.
still looks fine. I mean, a lot of these, I don't know why people will denounce a movie just because it was made in the 80s and it uses older effects. That doesn't mean it's bad.
No, not at all.
I don't understand why they why people are so dismissive. You know, maybe just people are getting too used to modern day effects, I think.
Yeah. It's a shame.
It really is. It really is. Well, about this, as you recall, there is this and then the Magic Mirror Gate after this.
Right.
In actuality, there's supposed to be 3. This is the, let's see if I can, the Great Riddle Gate, as it's referred to. Next is the Magic Mirror Gate. And the third, which is not portrayed, is called the No Key Gate, which I'm glad they didn't do, actually.
What's that one about?
Well, apparently, you have to forget everything and forget everything you are, who you are, and all desire to be able to pass through the gate. And only when doing so can he do it. And apparently, when Atreyu does, he doesn't know anything. So he's an empty bobblehead, and only through Bastion is he able to continue. And I'm like, well, I don't know how they would portray that on screen, but the Magic Mirror Gate is so filmic. It's so cinematic.
Yeah.
It looks so good that doing something after that would just be a step down. It would be a letdown. I'm like, well, looking into your inner self like that, I'm like, that's awesome. That should have been the third gate. Have the No Key Gate be the second one, whatever. But just, here we go. Be confident. Yeah, this is great music too. The score is just, it's beautiful.
It is a good score.
I mean, it's, I've never been that enveloped in a book while reading it, but he sells it, I guess.
Well, it would be totally uninteresting cutting back to Bastion if he was just reading.
He's reading silently, yeah. It's just, yeah. I mean, the book only moves at how fast he reads, so he can get up and go to the bathroom for all we know, and so it kind of takes away the drama. But see, I don't understand. Did he lose his confidence because he ran?
Yeah, and he got shot at, so
He made it. He made it. I always thought that was hilarious when he fell out of the basket. But yeah. So he ran. So did he suddenly lose his confidence in the end?
I think he did.
See right here. See, he's getting the shot. This is supposed to be one of the things that heals him, either from that creature I mentioned or from another cutscene I mentioned, which is something about the wind giants or something like that, where they get it. He and Atreyu and Falcor get into some kind of in the middle of a battle between the wind giants, and they're injured or something like that. So that could have been something that was supposed to happen before this, or it could have been the poisonous bite that they're getting healed from. I can't remember which. But it was supposed to be in the movie, but budget cuts just didn't allow it. So, Wolfgang Peterson did want it in there. I love this. The way he delivers those lines. It always screaming. It always makes me wonder what I would find looking into the Magic Mirror Gate. Did you ever wonder that? Brave men find that they are really cowards. And I'm like, does that mean we're all the opposite of what we are?
Well, not necessarily.
So, I mean, I believe that I am an asshole. So if I look in the mirror, am I really a nice person? I'm like, I hope so. I don't know. But I think it's cinematically it works, and just the seeing the expression on their faces when they realize, oh, I'm really this person, oh, I'm really that person.
Right.
I think it really works. What do you think you would say?
Shit. I don't want to know.
Doesn't this remind you a little bit of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy?
Yeah. I know the scene you're talking about.
It's on Magrathea, Is that the name of the planet?
I don't
Agrathea?
remember that, but I do remember what it looked like.
Yeah, it was some kind of warping tunnel or something or other. Something similar to that. Who knows? Maybe it was on the same set, for all we know.
Oh, I don't.
I don't know. I mean, it certainly looks like they shot that set from Legend. You know.
Yeah, it's very. Legend was in 80. God, what was it? It was early 80s. It was before this. So shoot, maybe they kind of pooled together some of the same stuff. Maybe it was shot in the same studio. I don't know.
Could be. It certainly looks like it, and it also looks like the set from the Garden of Eden set from the Wrath of Khan in the Genesis cave.
Yeah.
It kind of looks like that too. It does.
Well, at least it's not that, because that was shot on Paramount, and this is Warner Brothers.
Oh, that's right. That's a good point. Well, I mean, they can still use the same sets, can't they? I mean, a set is a set. I mean, right?
Well, I doubt Paramount.
Well, 20th Century Fox shot in London, on those giant sets,
Yes, but they don't leave the sets behind.
That's true.
They put it in their own warehouse, and then another production from that company might use it. But
yeah, apparently this is when he's supposed to lose his identity. But I always kind of wondered when he throws the book, or if he loses his place, does the book rewind? I don't know. I always kind of thought that's one of those little nitpicky things I always thought of. This is one of those scenes that shows up in that behind the scenes making of I was talking about, where you get to see them in this very dark set, and Wolfgang Peterson sitting crouching down over I forgot his name.
Barrett Oliver.
Barrett Oliver talking to him, and Barrett Oliver is just acting like a kid. I'm so used to just seeing him as Bastion, but it's fascinating. I really hope people go watch it just to see anything about the making of this movie is fascinating. Why it hasn't been given a special edition, I have no idea. I never did like the fact that they recycled the same Sphinx.
Yeah, I'd agree with you there.
I always thought that was a little weak.
Especially after what we just saw. Like you said, that was very, cinematic. I mean, we're still watching the movie, but there's some. It's hard to go up from that sort of thing. So the magic mirror gate,
Yeah, but still, to use the same statues and put a
agree.
blue hue over them. I mean, you think they would have come up with something a little, I don't know, anything else? I mean, something different. I mean, they have so many imaginative creatures. Why recycle the same prop? But apparently the Southern Oracle isn't supposed to have a form anyway. It's formless. She is formless. Speaks in rhymes and whatever. Kind of like in metaphor, like the aliens in Darmok. Darmok and Shalad at Tanagra, something like that.
Where can I find one?
But apparently here, we're finding out that the childlike empress is supposed to get a new name. And I don't know if it's completely dictated in this movie, but apparently the empress is more or less supposed to be like Excalibur or something like that. And that she is tied to the land. She is not as necessarily a person, but is the kind of like the health meter of Fantasia. She represents the well-being of Fantasia, and when we see her as sick, Fantasia becomes ill, and that's the Nothing destroying the land. And apparently, like I was saying a while ago, we got off on a tangent. The Nothing is a little different. Actually, as I said, the Nothing has no form, really. It is literally nothing. But apparently, here we see, the Nothing comes and ravages the land as a storm would. And I guess takes in people. But we never see that. We never really see anybody sucked into it like a vortex or anything like that. But apparently, when beings from Fantasia are taken into the nothing, they're apparently doing so by will. They actually jump into it because the nothing is so powerful, and when they do so, they become lies in the human world. That's what they become. Lies that go to further human greed and whatnot.
Okay.
So that was interesting. I don't know how it would play out in a film, seeing people jump into it and becoming human lies. I don't know if they can show that. Can that translate into a visual medium? I don't know.
Yeah.
I really don't. I always thought this scene went on a little too long, but I mean, the fact that they're going very, very far, very fast, but still for a long time, and he's smiling through the whole scene. I always thought was a bit much. I mean, because look how many landscapes they go through. I mean, this is the NeverEnding Story's equivalent of the Stargate scene from 2001: A Space Odyssey. So here's the storm outside his window.
Mm-hmm.
My mother.
Here we go.
Such a wonderful
My mother. She had the most wonderful name. And you know what the mother's name is. You know what he shouts at the end.
Are you asking me?
Yes.
Moonchild.
Yes, it's Moonchild. And is that his real mother's name? Because what kind of name is that? I can't imagine that's...
Could have been. I mean...
She a hippie?
It's certainly not... Well, she didn't name herself. But...
or parents hippies? I don't know. Hippies didn't exist back then, but still, it seems a bit odd. And someone I was listening to about this earlier made an interesting point. If Bastian is using his imagination with this book, as you're supposed to, then why doesn't he create his own name? Why does he take someone else's name? That's not imagination. He's not imagining a name. He's taking someone else's name. It's like, that's an interesting point. But throughout in the story, it makes sense. He wants to remember his mother.
yeah, sure.
It makes sense. Even in the story, I thought in the book, it makes sense that he would do that. But that was an interesting point. And like when it dramatically it works is what I meant. But it makes sense that, well, why wouldn't he just make up his own name? But dramatically, it's more effective.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, apparently, as I mentioned, the land of Fantasia goes through cycles, kind of like the universe. And as I mentioned, the oldest people in Fantasia, the old man on Wandering Mountain, Morla, and then the Empress. The Empress isn't assigned an age as we would think of it, like a number. She is only known to age by the name she is given. Does that make sense?
No.
Okay, let me explain. Because Fantasia is constantly dies and is reborn all the time. And so each time she has to be given a new name, or else Fantasia can't be reborn. So this has happened many, many times. It's a cycle.
Well, see, that just goes to tell you that the book is indeed just a skeleton filled in by the reader. It's not completely concocted by the reader.
I don't know. The way I just put it makes me think that I'm right, but okay.
Well, do you not see it that way?
No, not really. Okay. For a while I did, but that's before I learned stuff about the book. But from the movie, yeah, I would make that judgment as well, that the framework is there. That the skeleton, as you said, is there. And I think this is actually called Spook City, but it always kind of makes me think of Oz from Return to Oz.
Yeah.
Doesn't it have that feel to it?
Yeah, I can see
like
that.
Like the Gnome King in Oz. Kind of. And apparently the Rockbiter and those other characters are only supposed to like have cameos. They only exist in the beginning of the story itself. They never return.
Mm-hmm.
Which makes sense because there's a motif that goes on apparently, which is shed light upon at the end of this movie, where the narrator says, Bastian made many wishes and had many adventures, but that's another story.
Right.
Apparently, that's a motif that happens throughout the novel. The novel would say, well, the Rockbiter showed up and did this and this and this, and then he went off and did that, but that's another story.
Oh, okay.
And the same goes for the Night Hob and the Teeny Weeny, and so apparently they're just elements of other stories, that there's always stories going on, and they're just coming in making a brief appearance. So this is just one of many stories occurring. So the book is supposed to set up this great universe. Think of it as like a galaxy in a universe. You know, this is one galaxy. This is the Milky Way galaxy. And next door there's the Andromeda galaxy, where there's another story, something like that. I thought that was kind of an interesting way to put it.
I will just sit here and let it take me away too.
The Rockbiter actually is a man in a suit.
Well, you can tell
Yeah.
just by the hands.
Yeah, but it's a good effect.
Well, yeah, his proportions are all off, so it deceives you, and obviously that's not his face. That's an anime. Actually, I think that might be eyes. Maybe real eyes, but
Yeah, I mean, he's just a man in a suit, so he's, it's Godzilla's eyes. He's not really that big.
yeah,
When you see those pictures from the set, he's just
just a big guy, I guess.
it's a big guy, I guess. I don't know if this. I've always wondered if this was actually adapted from the novel too. This moment here, when he walks into Spook City and sees these paintings on the wall of what had previously happened. It's kind of an odd choice. I don't know. What do you think? I mean, do you think this is Bastian creating this? I don't know. It always kind of befuddled me.
To be honest with you, I can't say I ever gave it any thought, but
I like it a lot. It's a great marker of look where we've been and look where we've come. I like it. I don't know if it's. I mean, you get to see all these great iconic moments from the movie painted in these great paintings. I like it.
It is a neat moment, but you're right. I never really. It has to be Bastian's influence. I mean, where else would it be coming from?
I don't know. I mean, yeah, Bastian is Atreyu, so. And this is great. Seeing Gamork. And then the real Gamork. Oh, shit. Yeah, he's one of those creatures that scared me as a kid.
He's scary now.
Oh, he's scary even now. I mean, but the blood-stained teeth and the snout and everything like that. Yeah, it's frightening.
If you come any closer,
Apparently, Atreyu is supposed to come upon. They don't fight. He and Gamork don't fight. Apparently, he's chained up and dies laughing or something like that. Mm-hmm. Not a very satisfying ending to Gamork, from what I read. But I was like, oh, well, it kind of works in the movie. I like the way he goes out in the movie.
I am a warrior.
Well, yeah, here it's awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, I'm like, I don't know if that would
But I can't.
really work.
I can't get beyond the
And I don't know. I always kind of wondered, don't you think that Gamork would have made, put two and two together and think maybe this is Atreyu? Don't you think?
Yeah.
He's like, I've been looking for this person. Well, it probably is the person you're looking for. Did you ever think about that? I thought Gamork would be a little bit smarter than that.
don't you know anything about Fantasia? It's the world of human fantasy.
I'm just watching his face. I love his face.
Well, it's a little stiff, but it's very expressive.
Is a piece of the dreams and hopes of mankind. Therefore, it has no boundary.
Yeah, apparently, on his mission to find Atreyu, he met the Princess of Darkness, Gaia, who upon hearing of his mission to help the Nothing, chained Gamork with an unbreakable magical chain and leapt into the Nothing, leaving him to starve. Gamork explains to Atreyu the nature of the Nothing, and that if Fantasians enter it, they become a lie in the human world, as I mentioned. Yeah. Apparently, Gamork reveals the name of the boy he's pursuing, and Atreyu reveals his identity, which causes Gamork to laugh until he eventually succumbs to starvation. So that's how he dies.
Because people
So I don't think that would really work in the movie. I think we need a bigger bang for the buck. You know, it's kind of like the ending of Jaws. You know, in the novel which I read, Jaws just sinks because he's
Right.
been prodded so many times. He just sinks, and that's it. In the movie, well, we all know what happens. He blows
Yeah.
up. You know, smile, you son of a bitch.
Yeah.
You know, Spielberg says people are gonna, like, people paid their money. They sat here for 2 hours. The shark is gonna fucking explode.
Well, no, he didn't just say that. He said, you know, if they're with me this far, they want it to explode, you know.
Yeah, we need a big boom. You know, we need something. So, same instance here. You know, you're gonna want to. He's the main villain, other than the Nothing itself. You're gonna want the hero and the villain to square off against each other.
Oh, yeah.
was Atreyu.
Yes, even to now, we never really get a good look at his size, and you're absolutely right.
Fighting! Come for me, Gamork!
Yeah, it's really not until he's laying on top of him that you can tell.
Yeah, it's an eye-opening moment because you're like, oh shit, he's fucking huge, right here.
Yeah, I mean,
Look how fucking big he is. I like this movement here, from his paws. Right there. He's like, ugh, as he's, you know,
yeah.
he's dying. It was, I mean, I know it's a guy in a suit, you know, like an ROUS or something, but still, it was nice. Apparently, luck dragons don't react too well to water. Apparently, it's supposed to be deadly to them.
Well, that's interesting.
Apparently. I hear a cat.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. This must have been interesting to film.
It looks like fun.
Oh, yeah, fun. Is that a stunt double? Looks like it, yeah. I meant here when he goes up on the tree. Yeah, that would have been fun. It's kind of like filming the sinking scene in the Titanic. You know, all the people are sliding down. It's like, that looks like fun. I know they're getting paid, but that looks like fun to me. Well, now that we're in this kind of lull of the movie, as the Nothing is ravaging what's left of Fantasia. Do you remember much about the sequels at all? You know, 2 and especially 3?
I don't remember anything about 3.
Well, I know it did star the kid from Free Willy
Yeah, I mean that's all I knew.
as Bastian.
I would just remember his going back. I remember he got into that city on a boat.
From part 2.
Yeah,
Right. That's Brandis. Okay.
yeah. There was like that evil queen. Gosh, I don't remember much beyond that. I just remember not being remotely impressed by it.
Yeah, it was kind of bad. I mean, it was bad. I don't mean that in a like, oh, it was just, you know, not good. It was bad. It was a cheesy movie.
Yeah.
What happened, I don't know. It was a real shame, and I remember being really excited to see it, and you and our other brother Eric being really upset with me because we went to go see that movie in the theater, and that was my idea.
Oh, jeez, I don't remember that.
Yeah, you guys were really pissed because there was 2 movies coming out. This and the movie Shipwrecked. Do you remember Shipwrecked?
No.
Take us.
Okay, then. Well, about a boy shipwrecked on an island. They're looking for gold. But it came out at the same time. You both really wanted to see Shipwrecked, and I was like, I want to see the sequel to this. And, you know, we ended up seeing this, and you guys hated me for it. So there you go. But I remember, Bastian overcoming his fear of heights with the diving, and the third one actually has Jack Black in it too. Did you know that?
I want to say I did.
Yeah, the villains in the movie, in the second one, the villain, or not the evil force, is called not the Nothing, but the Emptiness. Isn't that creative?
Yeah.
And then in the third one, they're called the Nasties. I'm not joking. The Nasties. I'm like, yeah. I think I saw a part of it a long time ago, and I was like, yeah, this is bad. This is just bad. And actually, I think it did go to theaters, but I don't know how well it did.
Probably not well.
No, it was pretty well trashed by critics.
And deservedly so.
I think this is the return of the... Is it just called the Ivory Tower theme? Or is it just Ivory Tower?
The actual name of the track?
Yeah. It's the same theme they used during the
I don't
introduction of the tower, correct?
I think so.
Okay. I think this is great. I don't know why the author would have such a problem with this set. I don't get it. I really don't understand. Well, we were talking about Noah Hathaway before we started this.
Mm-hmm.
We mentioned that he owns a tattoo parlor now.
Yeah,
but
he's covered. He's got like full sleeves on both arms. I remember seeing pictures of him apparently before he got into that line of work, and he was good looking guy. Now maybe some people think that, but he's quite a bit thinner than what I last saw him looking like. And he's just got that tattooed guy look going on.
Yeah, I mean, he's time was kind to him, definitely.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying he's an ugly guy or anything, but it's just before he had the clean cut look going on.
Yeah.
He's obviously thrown that to the wind. So.
Mm-hmm.
It must be very strange for him to see himself like this.
Oh, I can imagine it'd be strange for any child actor. I mean, I can't watch myself on screen. I can't stand it. So to have this record of yourself in your youth and to be remembered that way all your life as being forever this age would just be very, very odd. Well, I like this actress a lot, and I think this is the only thing she's ever been in.
I think so.
She was an Iranian dancer, if I remember that. Her nationality, correct?
Really?
Yeah. And I think she's what's the word I'm looking for? Angelic.
Yeah,
it's definitely she's very eye-catching. It's I don't know how old she is. I mean, she looks to be 12, 13 years old.
Looks about it.
Yeah. And apparently she's not supposed to look like this. She's supposed to have white hair.
Yes, you did.
Yeah, and look nothing like this. But just like he's supposed to have green skin.
Everything you went through.
Right.
So I'm like, is that really that much to get upset about, Mr. Ende? The fact that her hair color's different, really? Because he was really picking a bone over these little differences.
We say.
So imagine if this was a 3-hour movie, this would be the middle, because this is the middle of the book.
Yeah.
And this movie isn't that long, so it makes me wonder if they ever had any intention of maybe actually adapting the whole thing.
I'm sure they did. I mean, they obviously read the book, so it seems like a very natural thing to do. I'm surprised they didn't try and film it all at once and then just sell it as 2 different movies,
That's true. I mean, they did that with... Well, they did do that before this with the Three Musketeers and Superman.
Yeah, it's not like it was unheard of. So, and especially given that you're working with children.
And that would keep them all the same age, yeah.
Exactly. I mean, why wouldn't you,
That's a good point. Who knows what we would have gotten? Who knows? And maybe, the author would have been a little more happy with the adaptation if they did the whole book.
Yeah, and what I like when they do that, you get a consistency of look that you don't get even if they come back a year later.
Oh,
film
definitely.
stock's different. Everything's a little different. You get that consistency, and I think that's...
They do manage to capture that sometimes. I mean, look at the Indiana Jones trilogy. They do have a similar look.
Similar, but not the same.
Not quite the same, no.
But this was supposed to literally be, the same story.
Yeah.
At least those are separated by time.
Yeah, that's true.
This was not supposed to be.
Yeah, it's a hard thing to pull off.
Kill Bill is an example. That does feel like this. It's the same style. It looks.
Does
the
it
same.
really? Because I feel those movies are so tonally different.
Oh, tonal. I'm not talking about the tone or anything. I'm just talking about visually. As far as the film stock that was used, the look of each actor. Everything was exactly the same. Obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Now, yes, Tarantino cut them totally differently, but that's not what I'm talking about. It's just different. He just fell down. Why is he down? Get up.
Why did he?
Atreyu.
Why did he fall down?
Well, no, he fell down because of the little shaking. But
Yeah.
get up. He just fell over. What's the problem?
Well, I mean, this is all Bastian's excitement. He's excited, so there you go. I love this moment here. When I was watching this last night, it gave me goosebumps when she looks into the camera. She cries like no other. Why don't you do what you dream, Bastian? Call back there. Must keep my feet on the ground.
Call my name.
I love that. She pleads so well.
Yeah.
And she's really crying. You can tell. That's not fake.
No, she's selling it.
She's selling it to me. I can't cry like that, so she did it well.
Dun, dun, dun,
Oh, it's awesome music. And right here, when he screams "Moonchild," if you know what he's saying,
you can hear it.
you can hear it. But I think leaving it kind of up in the air keeps it more magical. That you
I
don't
agree.
quite make out what he's saying.
Well, really, the only way you know is if you turn the subtitles on.
No, the subtitles don't say.
Mine just did.
Oh, mine don't. Mine don't.
Oh. Maybe in between then and now, they figured it out and they put it in because mine just said it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think. Well, imagine in the theater before DVDs existed. Seeing that would be, there wouldn't be any subtitles. So yeah, just
Well, yeah. Oh, of course.
yeah.
And of course, that's pre-internet, so there's no way to spread the word.
Mm-hmm. This was one of the first scenes that I saw on the behind the scenes featurette, where you get to see these two kids acting this scene out. It was incredible. Just seeing them on set, just in this black draped area, with the lamps overhead and the crew around them, and they're just going about their lines. And the scene so well, but only from this angle, and to see it from that other angle was fascinating because
I'm gonna have to look this up
because you see their whole bodies, and everything. And there's a line that gets cut out, I think, in this version anyway, where he says, "You are so beautiful." He says that to her. Does he say that to her here? I don't think he does.
I think he refers to something as beautiful. I think the thing she puts in his hand, maybe.
Okay, because he says to her, "You are so beautiful," and when he said that, I'm like, wait a minute, I don't remember him saying that. So this is basically how Fantasia is reborn every single time. The reader makes wishes, and Fantasia is born again, but different. It's not supposed to look the same all the time, apparently. But in the movie here, Bastian wishes Fantasia back to what it was before. And I guess that kind of makes sense. Cinematically, it works to see it restored. I mean, because it would be confusing to see a new Fantasia that isn't populated by the same characters we've come to know, or doesn't look the same way we come to have seen it. It would be confusing. So this makes sense to see it. Oh, it's back. Everything's back. He's wished it back.
Like it?
Popcorn's one.
I've always wanted this to happen when I read. I want this to happen when I read. I want to be taken into the story.
Never was.
Yeah, so I don't know. I don't know much about the second half of this book. I mean, other than what I've mentioned, that he just wishes and loses his memory and eventually almost himself, and he conjures Fantasia back into existence, but I don't know if he actually does it so in this case where everything is exactly the same. I don't know. I wonder what he does create, because apparently his character is pretty flat until the second part of the book, because it's more about Atreyu, apparently.
Right.
And this was another thing. It's a creation of the movie. The bullies existed in the beginning of the book, from what I read, but they don't come back, as with here, where they get their comeuppance.
Well, yeah, you gotta have it.
You gotta have it in a movie, yeah.
Especially for the Bastion character, we need this for him.
He needs it, but still, he's not defeating them. Falcor is. He's not.
Well, I get that. I get that.
I mean, if he stood up to them and, like George McFly and takes down Biff.
Yeah.
Takes him out with a punch. Here, he's using a luck dragon, so, what would he do without it? I don't know.
Who cares? Let him have his moment.
See, that doesn't look... I don't know, that from the rear, it almost doesn't look composited, but I know it is.
Yeah, from the rear, it's not as bad. From the front,
It almost looks like he's hanging there, but I know it isn't.
No, you can tell. You can see the white lines around it.
It's a little bit. From the front, it's the color's a little off.
Yeah.
But from the rear, not that bad.
It's a really dusty trash can.
I know.
Bastion made many other
This
wishes.
is the line I mentioned.
Yeah.
Many other adventures, but that's another story.
Before he finally returned to the ordinary world. But that's...
And it literally isn't another story. It's actually the same story when you think about it.
Yeah.
So that's a lie. That was the NeverEnding Story. And this is the most excellent song that we didn't talk about. From the beginning of the movie. Oh, we did talk about it, but not enough.
Well, I suppose the most notable thing for me, anyway, about that song is that...
There it is, right there. Lamal. Performed by Lamal.
Is that the song kind of falls apart during the second half to me,
Well, I would say it has three parts. The second part being the weak part.
Yeah.
Where it's all kind of like 80s synth.
Yeah, something. It changes.
Yeah.
It's not the same
Yeah,
song.
and you're listening to it and you're like, wait, when are we going to get back to NeverEnding Story?
Yeah, exactly.
Where's that part going to come in again? And you're like, okay, here it comes. I can hear it coming.
Yeah.
But it's still a pretty rad song, even with that part in there.
Oh, for sure.
Great song, and it overshadows the score. Unfortunately, I wish the score would get a little bit more light, but the song is so damn catchy. The bit of the magic of the score is lost.
Yeah, the score definitely took a backseat to that song, just like it did with Ghostbusters. The song just was so popular that no one really paid attention to the score, which was good.
The Ghostbusters, great score, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, this is the same way. I really think it's a classic fantasy score, and very much overlooked. Being the orchestral score fan that I am, I have both versions, and they're excellent. They're very powerful.
Well, is there anything you'd like to say as we send off this movie?
Well, I guess just kind of bookend what I said before, that fantasy films are not only are they few and far between, but the really good ones are even fewer and farther between. And this, in my opinion, is a classic fantasy movie. It does that in terms of its visual sense, its characters, its sense of awe, its sense of scope, just all sorts of things. It's very timeless to me. I love it.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with pretty much everything you said. I like it a lot. I think it is timeless. Maybe some of its effects are a bit dated, but I think that's part of its charm. And who knows? Maybe one day we'll see a remake. Who knows?
Oh, I'm sure we will.
All right. Well, until next time, this is Josh. So long.
This is Justin. Good night.